Immortalists think that Epicurus spoiled our society by convincing people that death doesn't harm them with his argument. When our death comes, we don't exist anymore, so there is nobody to harm. And these immortalists think that it's important to refute the argument in order to compel people to fight against death harder. There is a lot of dismissal going on. People say that Epicurus disguised psychotherapy as philosophy, or that he was doing sophistry. This is unfair. Even if you see a fundamental flaw in your opponent's arguments, it doesn't mean that he's a sophist. But you, as an immortalist, when you concoct philosophical arguments to convince your opponents, you may be doing sophistry because of the agenda. There are three groups of refutation attempts: definition-based, clarifying the concept of death, and value-based refutations. Often their authors claim that they have successfully defeated the Epicurean argument. Let's see. Death as incompatibility with myself. This is a definition-based refutation. It goes like that. I means I existing. Death is incompatible with my existence. Therefore, death harms me. The problem which I see is that harm pops out of nothing in the conclusion. You need to have harm somewhere in the premises. So you could say, being incompatible with me harms me, death is incompatible with me, therefore death harms me. It would be more valid. In order to clarify the refutation, an example is given with a person whose freedom of movement is restricted. And we say, look, this restriction is incompatible with his right to freedom. And we connect incompatibility with harm by this example. But it is not the incompatibility which harms the person. It is the physical chain on his hands which hurts him. Otherwise, I can flip the example and say, this person is a slave. Slavery is incompatible with freedom, therefore freeing this slave harms him, right? No. He will say, hooray, I'm free, thank you. He will be empowered by freeing. A deaf person will not be empowered, but he will not be harmed either. He will not say, oh, I'm dead, what a shame. Another definition-based refutation is defining death as harm itself. So death doesn't necessarily harm us, but it is the mother of harm. And if I cut myself a little bit, I'm moving towards death. The problem here is that I can harm myself without moving towards death. For example, starvation. It can prolong my life because of calorie restriction. So starved people are clearly harmed, but they are moving away from death. Another type of refutation is clarifying the concept of death. We accuse Epicurus of confusing two meanings of death. Death as a transition between life and non-existence, and death as the state of non-existing. And we say, look, Epicurus is urging us to not be afraid of the transition while talking about the state. I think Epicurus is not talking about the transition because it's not important. It exists during 0 seconds. It doesn't have a duration of time during which it harms you. Because by transition we don't mean the terminal illness, the pain of dying. No, we mean this infinitesimal moment between two states. In order to clarify the refutation, we can reduce Epicurus to absurd by claiming that he would urge us to not be afraid of a car crash, because before it happens the car still exists, after it happens there is no car anymore, and the car crash will not happen another time. Therefore we shouldn't be afraid of it, right? But this example doesn't refer to the original Epicurean argument. The fact that the bad event will not happen again doesn't matter. What matters is that the victim doesn't exist. There is nobody to suffer. In the example with the car, the victimized driver is suffering because his car is destroyed. Another group of refutations are value-based refutations. The deprivation account says that death is a harm because it deprives us of all the good things in life. And a similar refutation is categorical desires. We can split our desires into two groups. The conditional desires, which depend on me staying alive, and the categorical desires. So if I want to wear good clothes, I will not be saddened if my death is approaching, because I will not be able to wear good clothes. I will not need clothes after I die. But if I want to explore space or to learn some facts, I will be saddened by my approaching death, because it interferes with those plans. The weakness of value-based refutations is that they depend on our brain existing and having these values. Because a value can mean two different things. It can mean my feeling of a value. When I say friendship is my value. And another meaning is the object of value. So this table is a value for me. And I can be harmed only in one case, when I have the feeling of value and I lose the object of value. So I destroy my table and I suffer. But if I lose the feeling of value, I don't suffer. In fact, some philosophers, including Epicurus, will claim that I will improve my state, because there are fewer ways how I can be harmed. And they advocated a simple life. For example, if I try a new expensive food, I will develop a liking and I will decrease my well-being, because I will depend on getting this food. If I don't get it, I will suffer. So it's better for me to never try it. Death destroys all the feelings of value, and it removes all the ways in which I can be harmed. I think it is not important for immortalism to refute the Epicurean argument. It's a good argument after all. We can focus on our identity as immortalists, which propels us into the future.